Man, why can't I get a job in the government? Why can't I work in the media? Because I predict things with such an accuracy. It's almost like I have a crystal ball. My magic is called common sense. 4 years ago, I predicted that the new policy which Starbucks has enacted is going to hurt them financially in the long run. Now it turns out that over 16 stores in the United States, and potentially more, are going to shut down because of safety concerns. But not only that, the advice that I give on this channel is so precious, it's sage advice, I should charge for it. Turns out if you apologize, it's going to make it worse from a business point of view. So, what happened 4 years ago? Well, at a Starbucks, there were two individuals which sat on a table and they didn't order anything. Now, they were asked to either order something or leave. And the gentleman said that because they're black, that's why they were asked to leave, right? So, racismus into the heart of the United States of America. And of course, the mainstream media jumped on it, and they said that they were customers, which they weren't, by the way. Like, a customer is someone that buys something and pays for the product. Furthermore, it's considered polite and common sense that if you go into a venue, even to use the bathroom, you should still buy something just out of politeness because you use those facilities. But hey, you know, that's just me. Now, in this case, those gentlemen not only refused to buy something, when they were asked to leave, they flat out refused. So eventually the manager owner called the cops because they were trespassing. That's exactly what happens if you're on a private property and you're asked to leave and refuse to do so. And, you know, the media went in and they said, oh, this is racismus, and they published articles after articles showing that those two gentlemen were actually activists and they were actually trying to start something, and they managed to succeed. Now, Starbucks did the worst thing imaginable and apologized for this. So let's look at a similar event which happened in Germany, and when the company didn't apologize, and see what happened. So in Germany, at the KFC in Berlin, you had a couple of tourists, which were also black, that started some nonsense in a KFC. And this is exactly the same year, exactly the same story. Now, there is video evidence with those gentlemen, those tourists, that started throwing food at the employees, started hurling abuse at the employees, and eventually the employees called the cops. Now, of course, the cops arrested them. And I know that we're used to showing papers because we live in the era of the QR code. But back in 2018, asking someone to show papers was like Nazi stuff, especially in Berlin. Guess what? All those tourists were asked to show papers. They were asked to say at what hotels they live in. They were asked to say how much they plan to stay in the country, right? So the media also accused, and social media especially, they accused the KFC of racismus. The KFC said there is no racismus, fuck off. And you know what happened? The story died. Within a couple of months, I'm pretty much sure no one even remembers this. However, when you look at the Starbucks, they not only decided to put their employees on anti-racism training, and they shut down 8,000 stores, but on top of that, they constantly had like these various bizarre initiatives, like you buy a Starbucks, and if you're white, the employee is going to start a discussion to you about race. And this literally affected their sales. But not only that, they were caught in other, like the more they tried to pander, the more activists visited their stores. And here you have an example where a black customer, which was in a store that was filled and was asked to wait outside because the store was filled, managed to create this social media campaign and again put pressure on the company. Again, the company apologizes. Again, the company spends more money on anti-racism. So again, like the more they apologized, the more they were spending money on anti-racism, the more racist their company was alleged to be. And the more activists that wanted to make a name for themselves visited Starbucks. Now, the main issue with Starbucks wasn't just the fact that they were indoctrinating their employees on anti-racism, because how can you be anti-racist unless the corporation educates you? Like, you could put that on a resume that you have managed to finish the school of anti-racism. And by the way, I'm also curious, like, if you get anti-racism training, does that mean that you can't be a racist anymore? Like, can you show paper and say, look, I can't be a racist because I did the training, I graduate, right? Because like, if you go to an engineering course and you graduate, then it means you know how to engineer, right? Like if you go to med school and you graduate, it means that you know how to be a doctor. But if you go to anti-racism school and you graduate, does that mean you can't be a racist? Good question, isn't it? If not, then maybe the courses don't work. But my point is, it wasn't just the fact that they were wasting time and spending all money on this stuff and pumping money into activist groups. No, the problem was that now they had to let everyone in. So everyone that wanted to use a Starbucks got to do so. It was kind of like a public park. But the problem between a public park and a Starbucks is that the Starbucks is usually small. As well as the fact that the Starbucks is a business that's meant to attract usually bourgeois, upper middle class twats. I mean, the coffee is so expensive, there's no justification for it. So their clientele is the stuck up, upper nose, California IT guy. Which, if you were to ask, he absolutely loves homeless people. He wants to help minorities. The problem is he doesn't want those in his backyard. So he doesn't want to be in the same place with the homeless people and the drug addicts. But from an ideological standpoint, he definitely wants to help them. So when you have a Starbucks, which has homeless people and drug addicts coming in, and you can't kick them out because that's now company policy, well, the actual customer, the white liberal, upper middle class bourgeois twat doesn't want to go there. So what ends up happening is that you have to shut down the stores. And there were a lot of people on Reddit, and this didn't go into the media, by the way, with stores after stores after stores constantly shutting down because of this policy. As well as employees wanting to quit. Like there were employees saying, like, every time I go to clean the bathroom, it's a health hazard for me because there's needles everywhere and I can get poked and I can get AIDS or something. So employees were also afraid of working there. Now, it's getting so bad that it's actually in the media. Finally, it's being reported. And what's interesting is what they are saying, instead of admitting the failure of what they are doing. I mean, look at this, you know, like the Marxist fist clenching the Starbucks. Like, this is the most bizarre shit ever. It's like putting a McDonald's over Karl Marx's grave. It's like you have corporatism mixed with some bizarre version of socialism. Like the worst excesses of capitalism, which is Starbucks. Like, coffee is so expensive. The fact that the company claims to be inclusive is beyond laughable. But you have like the Starbucks being clenched by the communist fist. It's just bizarre. And workers united. Look at this shit. So anyway, right, instead of admitting that the reason for the failure is the fact that this is not how you do business. Like, if you have a venue, it should be limited to the customers. Like, no one is going to accuse a business, unless they're disingenuous, but no one is going to accuse a business for asking customers to step out. Like, if I'm at a restaurant and I see people just walking in and they're not sitting down anywhere and they're just being a bother, and the waiter escorts them out, like, no one is going to say anything about it. But guess why? Guess why it has failed? It has failed because we are seeing firsthand the challenges facing our communities. The corpus speak, our communities. Personal safety. I find it difficult to believe that our communities are similar. I find it difficult to believe that the neighborhood minorities live in is the same as the neighborhood where the CEO at Starbucks lives in. I just say, you know, so when you say our communities, it's a little bit disingenuous. Personal safety. I mean, yeah, when you demonize and defund the police, yeah, I would say that personal safety for your employees might become a little bit more of a concern. Lack of access to healthcare. Yeah, so because people can't get an abortion, this is why you're shutting down the stores? I mean, I guess paying maternity leave as a corporation is very difficult. Growing mental health crisis. Rising drug use and more. Well, again, when you defund the police, you're going to get rising drug use. When you shut down mental asylums, you're going to get a growing mental health crisis. This is in California now, by the way. This is the benchmark of progressive ideology. You don't get more progressive than California now unless it's Portland. But by the way, the ones in Portland are shutting down too, so... With stories in thousands of communities across the countries, we know these challenges can at times play within our stores too. To make workers feel safer in stores, the company is offering active shooter training and other types of training. How about you didn't push for defunding the cops? How about that? How about you push for law and order? And then you wouldn't have to teach your employees how to deal with active shooter training. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Like, look, reality is there. So if you live in a dangerous neighborhood, being trained how to perform in an active shooting environment, yeah, which is probably them telling it's like, okay, well, if they ask for the cash, just give it to them. You know, don't be a hero. Just stand back and allow them, and then the cops are going to go after it. That's probably what they're being told. It's also offering mental health benefits, access to abortion care. Again, like this is so fucking laughable. Like corporations not wanting to pay maternity leave and selling it as they're progressive. Like for a company, a woman getting an abortion and then coming back to work is a lot more profitable than a woman having a baby and having to take maternity leave. Even if she's not being paid by the company, the fact that she's going to come back in a year and they have to find someone that will work only for 1 year is very difficult. And by the way, it used to be in law that this was discriminatory. Like asking a woman whether or not she's pregnant at the interview, that was actually discrimination and it's illegal by law, right? But I'm glad that the companies found a little loophole, a little bit of workaround. It's like, oh, well, you need abortion? Oh, we'll pay for that. Maternity leave? Oh, we're not interested. Please don't. Please don't. So we need to reinvent Starbucks for the future. We need to radically improve employee experience. Safety, welcoming, and kindness for our stores. I love the fact that none of this shit is happening in Romania, by the way. Like, none of this shit with the Starbucks in Romania is happening. None of this shit is happening in Saudi Arabia, where they aren't even allowed to have a female on their logo. Like, seriously, look it up. Like, Saudi Arabia has not only just a different logo, because they can't have, like, a woman, but they also have gender-based restaurants where they have a wall separating the men from the women. And that's no problem, right? Like, that doesn't go against Starbucks company policy. No, that's fine. But, you know, whatever. My point is that the moment they apologized, the moment they let the activists in, the moment they started pumping money into activist groups, all you had was more activists accusing them of racismus. All you had was more money diverted to this shit. And all you're having now is employees not feeling safe, employees being afraid to go to work, and you have businesses shutting down. Meanwhile, the Chad KFC, which refused to apologize, doesn't have any of that shit. Doesn't have to deal with any of this crap. They're not the ones having restaurants shutting down because employees are feeling unsafe. Because they're not allowing drug addicts and people with mental health issues to use their facilities unless they're willing to be a customer. So, anyway, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.